She turned quickly. It was Ethan, holding a basket of fruits. He smiled. I thought I'd find you here. Grace forced a smile. You came to the market? He laughed. Well, I can't always be in suits and cars. Sometimes, it's nice to see real life. She smiled genuinely this time. That's good. City people often forget what real life looks like. He picked up a mango and examined it. You know, my mother, the one who raised me, never liked fruits. I always wondered if my real mother did. Grace froze. Your real mother? She asked quietly. Ethan nodded. Yes. I was adopted. My parents told me when I was 18. They said my birth mother died giving birth to me. Grace's heart stopped. She could barely breathe. I'm sorry to hear that. He shrugged. It's okay. I've made peace with it. But sometimes, I wonder what kind of woman was she? What was her voice like? Did she love me? Grace's eyes filled with tears. She turned away quickly, pretending to look at the mangoes. Every mother loves her child, Ethan. No matter what. He smiled sadly. Maybe you're right. When he left, Grace stood frozen for a long time. Her body trembled, and her heart raced. Now she was sure this was her son. Her Ethan. She whispered shakily, they told him I died. Oh, God. She sat on a nearby bench, clutching her chest as tears flowed freely. The world around her blurred. Ethan returned later that evening, holding a piece of cloth. I tore my shirt, he said with a sheepish grin. Thought you might help me fix it. Grace smiled faintly, wiping her tears quickly. Of course. Give it here. As she sewed, he watched her hands move. Her fingers were steady, her focus perfect. You remind me of my mother, he said suddenly. Grace froze. Your mother? Yes, he said softly. Not my birth mother, the one who raised me. She always said, Ethan, work with your hands. Never look down on anyone who works hard. You have the same spirit. Grace blinked back tears. She sounds like a good woman. She is, he replied. But sometimes, I feel there's something missing in her eyes when she looks at me. Like, guilt. Grace looked up sharply. Guilt. He nodded. Maybe it's my imagination. Anyway, you must think I talk too much. She smiled sadly. No, Ethan. It's good to talk. Talking brings healing. He smiled warmly. Then maybe I'll visit you more often. You're always welcome, she said softly. As he left, she whispered to herself, oh God, what do I do now? How do I tell him? How will he look at me when he knows the truth? That night, Grace couldn't sleep again. The memories of 23 years ago flooded her mind, the rain, the car, the crying baby. She wept silently, clutching the hospital tag to her heart. His here, Lord. His right here. But how do I tell him without losing him again? Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, the same sound that had filled the night when she gave him away. It was as if heaven itself was preparing for the storm to return. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. The air smelled of rain and wet earth. Grace sat by her sewing machine, watching raindrops race down the window pane. Her thoughts, as always, wandered to Ethan. Since his visit days ago, her heart hadn't known peace. Every word he spoke, every smile he gave, cut deeper into her guilt. Then a knock on the door. She turned, startled. Who is it? It's me, Grace. Linda. Grace froze. Linda. The name that carried both friendship and betrayal. Slowly, she opened the door. There stood Linda, older now, her once lively face lined with regret. Her hair was streaked with gray, and she clutched a small leather purse to her chest. Linda, Grace breathed. After all these years. Linda's eyes filled with tears. Grace, I've carried this burden for too long. I couldn't live with it anymore. Grace stepped aside silently. Come in. They sat facing each other, the air thick with memories. Linda began, her voice trembling. Grace, I came to beg you, to forgive me. Grace looked down. Forgive you? You were the one who brought that couple. You made me believe it was the only way. And I gave away my own flesh and blood. Linda sobbed. I know. I thought I was helping you. You were dying of hunger. You couldn't afford milk. I thought 500,000 Nigerian nairas would save you. Grace shook her head bitterly. It didn't save me. It cursed me. Every night I see him, that baby, crying in the rain. Linda opened her purse slowly and brought out an old brown envelope, sealed but worn. Grace, she said softly, this was given to me the day you handed the baby over. The couple said if anything ever happened, I should give it to you. I never had the courage until now. Grace stared at the envelope as if it were alive. What is it? Linda's voice broke. A letter, and a photograph. With trembling hands, Grace opened the envelope. Inside was a neatly folded letter and a faded photo of a young man holding a baby. The letter read, Dear Grace, we know this decision will haunt you, but please believe us, your son will live a good life. We promise to give him love, education, and everything you couldn't. His name will remain Ethan. We will tell him you died giving birth, so he never feels abandoned. We pray someday, if destiny allows, he finds his way back to you. Until then, forgive us. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. By the time she finished reading, her tears had soaked the page. He's alive, Grace whispered. He's alive, and they told him I'm dead. Linda nodded, weeping. Yes, Grace. I found out the boy is a big man now, the one who came to buy land in this village. His name is Ethan Thompson. Grace's breath caught. Her body went weak. Ethan Thompson. Yes. Grace clutched her chest, sobbing. Oh God, it's true. It's my son. My son has come home. Linda reached out to hold her hand. Grace, you have to tell him. Grace shook her head violently. No. How can I? He thinks his mother died. If I tell him, he'll hate me. He'll see me as a monster, the woman who sold him. Linda's voice was gentle. Grace, you've punished yourself long enough. Maybe this is God giving you one last chance. Grace turned away, trembling. What if I lose him again? Linda stood, tears streaming down her face. Then at least you'll lose him knowing you told him the truth. Grace sat there long after Linda left, the letter trembling in her hand. She looked up at the leaking roof, whispering, God, give me strength. Just once, let me tell him before I die. As thunder rolled again in the distance, she made up her mind, tomorrow, she would tell Ethan everything. Morning came softly, the air thick with the smell of wet earth. Grace dressed in her best wrapper, a simple blue ankara, and tied her headscarf neatly. Her heart pounded like a drum. She looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror. You can do this, she whispered. He deserves the truth. She tucked the letter into her handbag and stepped outside. The village road was quiet as she walked toward the big guest house where Ethan was staying. Her steps were slow, her palms sweaty. But just as she reached the gate, she froze. She could hear voices, Ethan and Amelia arguing inside. Inside the compound. Amelia stood by the car, arms crossed. I can't believe you're still here. Ethan, this is ridiculous. You're acting like some emotional villager. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Amelia, you don't understand. There's something about this place, about that woman. I feel connected to her. Amelia scoffed. Connected? She's a poor tailor. You're a Lagos businessman, Ethan. Wake up. He looked at her coldly. That poor tailor, as you call her, deserves respect. She's kind, hardworking, and honest, everything you're not right now. Amelia gasped. Excuse me? Ethan didn't respond. He turned away and muttered, maybe we need a break. Amelia's face twisted in anger. Fine. Stay in your little village with your tailor if you want. I'm going back to Lagos. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, brushing past Grace without even noticing her. Grace hid behind the wall, shaken. She hadn't meant to overhear, but her heart was racing. Ethan looked so broken, so lost. She stepped forward softly. Ethan. He turned. His expression softened when he saw her. Mrs. Grace. You're here early. Yes, she said quietly. I needed to talk to you. It's important. Of course, he said kindly. Come in. They sat under the mango tree in the yard. Grace could barely speak. Her mouth was dry, her hands trembling. Ethan noticed. Are you okay? She nodded weakly. I just need you to listen. What I'm about to say might sound strange, but please, don't interrupt me until I finish. Ethan frowned slightly but nodded. All right. Grace took a deep breath. 23 years ago, there was a young couple in this village, poor, struggling, drowning in debt. They had nothing, not even money for milk. When their baby was born, desperation pushed them into darkness. Ethan's brows furrowed. Go on. The mother, she gave up her baby to a wealthy couple from the city. They promised to care for him, to give him the life she couldn't. She took the money, but that decision destroyed her. Ethan's expression changed. His eyes widened slightly. What are you saying? Grace's voice broke. That woman was me, Ethan. He froze. Grace reached into her bag with shaking hands and pulled out the letter and the faded photo. This was left for me. They told you I died at birth, but I didn't. I've been here all along, living with the weight of my sin. Ethan stared at her, speechless. His hands trembled as he took the letter. He read it silently, line by line. Then he looked up, his eyes burning. You sold me? Tears streamed down Grace's face. Yes, I did. I was young, desperate, and foolish. I thought I was saving you. But I've lived every day regretting it. Ethan stood abruptly, his face pale. You sold your own son for money. Grace fell to her knees, sobbing. I was starving. I had no choice. I begged God to forgive me every night. Please, Ethan, I never stopped loving you. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, this can't be true. It's true, she cried. Look at the tag. Look at the photo. You're my baby, Ethan. My little boy who cried in the rain. Ethan's eyes filled with tears, but his voice was cold. You should have died that night if you truly loved me. Grace gasped. The words cut deep. He turned away, fists clenched. I thought my mother died protecting me. Now I find out she sold me like an item in the market. Grace crawled closer, weeping. Ethan, please. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know the truth before I die. He looked at her one last time, a storm of anger, pain, and confusion in his eyes. Then he whispered, You already died to me once. I can't lose you again. And with that, he walked away. Grace collapsed to the ground, her cries echoing through the compound. The rain began to fall again, gentle at first, then heavier as if the heavens themselves were weeping. Inside his car, Ethan sat gripping the steering wheel, tears streaming down his face. He whispered to himself, She's my mother. And yet, how do I forgive that? Outside, through the blur of rain, Grace remained on her knees, soaked, trembling, whispering only one thing over and over. I'm sorry, my son. I'm sorry. The rain poured all night. Thunder roared like angry drums over the small village, washing away dust and peace. Inside his car, Ethan sat motionless. His headlights cut through the rain, but he couldn't bring himself to drive. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as his chest rose and fell, heavy with confusion and pain. He heard her voice over and over in his mind, I was starving. I never stopped loving you. He banged the steering wheel. Then why did you sell me? He shouted into the darkness. Why didn't you fight for me? Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the rain-soaked figure of Grace, still kneeling in the mud, her wrapper drenched, her frail body shaking from cold and heartbreak. Ethan looked at her through the windshield. For a moment, his anger softened, but then another wave of bitterness rose. He started the car and drove off. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The air was cold and fresh, the sky a pale gray. Grace woke up weak and feverish. Her head pounded, her throat burned. She had fallen asleep on the floor beside her sewing machine after crying herself into exhaustion. Her neighbor, Mama Esther, entered, worried. Grace, you slept here all night. You'll catch your death. Grace sat up slowly. I'm fine. No, you're not, Mama Esther said firmly. You're burning up. What happened? Grace gave a faint smile. Just life, Mama. Life happened. Mama Esther shook her head, fetched a bowl of water, and pressed a wet cloth to Grace's forehead. You've worked too hard, my dear. You need rest. Grace closed her eyes, whispering, rest is all I've wanted, for years. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Ethan hadn't slept either. He sat by the window of his suite, staring blankly at the hills beyond the village. His assistant, Tunde, entered quietly. Sir, the investors are calling. They want confirmation on the land acquisition. Ethan didn't turn. Put it on hold. Tunde hesitated. Sir, this deal is. Put it on hold. Ethan barked. Tunde stepped back, startled. Ethan sighed and rubbed his forehead. I'm sorry, Tunde. I need time. Tunde nodded softly. Sir, is it about that woman? Ethan looked up sharply. What do you know about her? Only what I've seen. She's respected here. Everyone calls her Mama Grace. They say she's helped many widows and orphans. But, Tunde hesitated. There's sadness in her eyes. Like someone who's lost something she can't replace. Ethan looked away, his voice low. She lost more than anyone knows. Later that day, Ethan drove aimlessly through the village. Children waved as he passed, old men greeted him warmly. But inside, he felt empty. At a small junction, he stopped by a palm wine seller. The man smiled. Ah, city man, you look troubled. Drink small, it will cool your heart. Ethan smiled weakly and sat down. The old man poured him a cup and said, you know, life is like palm wine. Bitter at first, but sweet later if you wait. Ethan looked at him curiously. Do you really believe that? The man laughed softly. I've buried a wife and 2 sons, young man. If I didn't believe that, I'd have gone mad long ago. Ethan looked into the cup, his reflection rippling. What if the person who hurt you is the one you need to forgive to be free? The old man smiled knowingly. Then you forgive, even if it hurts. Not for them, for yourself. Ethan looked up slowly. For myself. He thanked the man and drove away, but the words lingered. Grace lay on her bed, her breathing shallow. Fever burned through her body. The letter lay beside her, crumpled but close to her heart. Her vision blurred, and she whispered weakly, Ethan, my son. Mama Esther rushed in with a bowl of herbs. Grace, you're getting worse. I'm calling the health center. Grace grabbed her hand weakly. Please, if you see Ethan, tell him I forgive him too. Mama Esther frowned. Forgive him? For what? Grace's eyes filled with tears. For walking away. He has every right to hate me. Mama Esther sat beside her. Grace, no one deserves to carry this kind of pain. You need to tell him you love him while you still can. Grace smiled faintly. That's all I've been trying to say. Fell again. Ethan parked his car by the riverside, the same river that ran past Grace's land. The moonlight danced on the water. He remembered his childhood, the dreams he had, the strange memory of crying in the rain as a baby, the sense of something missing all his life. And then he remembered her trembling voice, her tears, her pain. He whispered, she didn't just sell me. She suffered for it. A single tear slid down his cheek. All these years, she lived in silence because of me. He closed his eyes. Maybe it's time I stop running from the truth. The next morning, Ethan drove straight to Grace's house. Mama Esther was at the door, her face worried. He jumped out of the car. Mama Esther, where's Grace? She's very sick, Ethan. Fever, cough, weakness, I'm scared. Ethan's heart pounded. Take me to her. He entered the small room. Grace lay on the bed, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. The sight broke him. Grace, he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. When she saw him, she smiled weakly. You came. Ethan knelt beside her, his voice trembling. I was angry. I said things I shouldn't have said. She lifted a trembling hand and touched his face. You have every right to be angry. I hurt you. He shook his head, tears streaming. You didn't hurt me, Mama, life did. You were just trying to survive. Grace's eyes filled with tears. You called me Mama. He nodded. Because that's what you are. She began to cry softly. I don't deserve it. He took her hand. Maybe not. But you deserve peace. Grace smiled faintly. God is merciful. He brought you back to me before it was too late. Ethan tried to smile through his tears. Don't say that. You'll get better. I'll take you to the city for treatment. She shook her head slowly. No. I've made my peace. But promise me something, Ethan. Anything, he said quickly. Promise me you'll live without hatred. Don't let my sin become your burden. Ethan nodded, sobbing. I promise. Grace smiled weakly. That's all I needed. Her eyes slowly closed as tears rolled down her cheeks. Ethan panicked. Mama. No. Stay with me. But her breathing grew slower, softer, until it stopped. Ethan held her hand tightly, shaking, whispering, Please don't leave me again. The morning sun broke through the clouds, flooding the room with golden light, the same light that had filled the sky the day he was born. Outside, the village bell rang. Somewhere in the distance, children laughed, life continued. But inside that small room, a son wept over the mother he had just found, and lost again. He buried his face in her hands and whispered, You gave me life twice, once when you birthed me, and once when you told me the truth. The sky turned grey that afternoon, as if the heavens knew a storm was coming. Grace sat in her little shop, hands trembling as she tried to sew a torn school uniform. But her eyes were blurred with tears. She hadn't seen Ethan since the night at the hospital. He had vanished, no calls, no visits. The silence broke her more than words could. Linda rushed into the shop, panting. Grace, have you heard? She asked. Grace looked up weakly. Heard what? Ethan is in the hospital again. He collapsed this morning at the construction site. The needle fell from Grace's hand. What? Hospital? Which one? The general hospital. They said he had a panic attack or something. He was shouting your name, Grace. Over and over. Grace didn't wait for more. She dropped everything and ran. The clouds opened up and the rain poured, but she didn't stop. Her wrapper clung to her legs, her slippers broke halfway, but she ran barefoot, heart pounding like thunder. When she reached the hospital, she saw him, Ethan, lying weakly on the bed. His face pale, his eyes swollen. Amelia stood beside him, her makeup smudged from tears. Amelia looked up sharply. Why are you here? She asked coldly. Grace didn't answer. She just walked forward and held Ethan's hand. Ethan, she whispered, voice shaking. I'm here, my son. He opened his eyes slowly. His lips trembled. Mother. The word broke Grace open. She sobbed, her head falling on his chest. Yes, my son. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Amelia's face twisted with confusion. What's going on? Ethan, who is she? Ethan's voice was soft, but clear. She's the woman who gave me life, and the woman who gave me away. Amelia gasped, stepping back. What are you talking about? He closed his eyes, pain flashing across his face. I found out the truth last night. The adoption papers. The date. The village name. Everything matched. And the worst part. I saw the picture. Her picture. Grace sobbed harder. I was young. I was poor. I didn't know what to do. Please forgive me. He looked at her for a long moment, tears slipping down his face. I hated you last night, he said slowly. I wanted to curse you. But when I saw your face again, when I remembered how your hands trembled, I realized something. You didn't sell me because you didn't love me. You sold me because you did. Grace nodded, weeping. You were hungry. We were starving. Your father had left. I thought I was giving you a chance at life. Ethan squeezed her hand weakly. And you did. You gave me a chance. But now, I want to give you one. He turned to Amelia, who stood frozen. Amelia, cancel the land deal. I'm not taking this village. I'm not destroying her home. Amelia's voice trembled. Ethan, you can't do that. We've already. I said cancel it, he shouted, his voice breaking. The nurses came running, telling everyone to leave. Grace was pushed out of the ward, crying and praying. Hours later, the rain stopped, and a quiet wind swept the hospital yard. The doctor finally came out. "Your son is stable," he said softly. "But he needs rest and peace." Grace sank to her knees, whispering, "Thank you, Jesus." That night, she stayed outside his room, refusing to sleep. She hummed a soft lullaby, the same song she had sung 23 years ago when she held him for the first time. Inside, Ethan smiled faintly, his heart finally at peace. 6 months later, the village had changed. The land deal was gone, and instead, Ethan had built a community center with a sewing workshop named Grace Hands. The walls were painted bright yellow, and women from all around came to learn tailoring, just like Grace once did. Grace stood at the doorway that morning, her head high, her heart full. Ethan had bought her a new sewing machine, her first ever brand new one. She ran her hand over it, whispering, "I never thought I'd live to see this day." Ethan walked in, dressed simply in jeans and a white shirt. No more designer suits. No more arrogance. Just a man reborn. "Good morning, Ma," he said playfully. Grace laughed through tears. "Don't call me that. It makes me feel old." He smiled. "Then what should I call you?" She paused. "Call me Mum." Ethan froze for a moment, then nodded, eyes glistening. "Mum," he whispered. They both laughed softly, and Grace reached out to touch his face. "You look so much like your father," she said. "Except you're better." Ethan chuckled. "Do you ever think about him?" Grace sighed. "Every day. But some stories don't get a second chance. I'm just grateful ours did." Later that day, the villagers gathered for the opening of the center. Linda stood proudly beside Grace, grinning. "You see, I told you God never forgets." Ethan gave a short speech. His voice carried across the crowd. "When I first came here," he began, "I came to take. But now, I want to give. This place will not only teach people skills but remind us all that forgiveness is stronger than blood, and love can grow even from broken beginnings." The crowd clapped. Grace couldn't stop her tears. As the sun began to set, Ethan walked her home. The sky burned orange and gold. "I'll be leaving for Lagos next week," he said quietly. "But I'll come back. I promise." Grace smiled. "I'll hold you to that." When they reached her little house, the same one where she had once cried all night after selling him, Ethan stopped and looked around. "This place," he said softly. "It's where everything began." Grace nodded. "And where everything ends." They stood there in silence for a while. The sound of children playing echoed from afar. Ethan took her hand. "Mum, thank you for giving me life, twice." Grace smiled faintly, her voice trembling. "And thank you, my son, for forgiving me once." A gentle wind blew, lifting the old curtain that hung on her doorway. Grace turned to see the tiny cradle still in the corner, covered with dust. She walked to it and touched it tenderly. "This is where I laid you, the night I thought I lost you forever." Ethan came beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "You never lost me, Mum. I was just finding my way back home." Grace leaned into him, tears streaming down her face. "Welcome home, my son." Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, soft, peaceful, full of grace. The storm was finally over. Please don't forget to hit the like button, comment and subscribe. Your support is what keeps this stories alive. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to get more interesting stories like this.